This podcast is supported by MIDI Health. Are you in midlife, feeling dismissed, unheard, or just plain tired of the old healthcare system? You're not alone. For too long, women's serious midlife health issues have been trivialized, ignored, and met with a just deal with it attitude. Many of us have been made to feel ashamed or forgotten. In fact, even today, 75% of women seeking care for menopause and perimenopause issues are left entirely untreated. But here's the powerful truth. It's time for a change. It's time for MIDI. MIDI is not just a healthcare provider. It's a women's telehealth clinic founded and supported by world-class leaders in women's health. What sets MIDI apart? We are the only women's telehealth brand covered by major insurance companies, making high-quality, expert care accessible and affordable for all women everywhere. Our clinicians provide one-on-one, face-to-face consultations where they truly listen to your unique needs. We offer a full range of holistic, data-driven solutions, from hormonal therapies and weight loss protocols to lifestyle coaching and preventive health guidance. This isn't a one-size-fits-all care. This is care uniquely tailored for you. At MIDI, you will join our patients who feel seen, heard, and prioritized. You will find that our mission is clear: to help all women thrive in midlife, giving them access to the health care they deserve. Because we believe midlife isn't the middle at all. It's just the beginning of your second act. Ready to feel your best and write your second act script? Visit joinmidi.com today to book your personalized, insurance-covered virtual visit. That's joinmidi.com. MIDI, the care women deserve.
Imagine you're a business owner relying on a dozen different software programs. Each one is expensive, overly complicated, and worst of all, none of them are connected. It can be incredibly stressful, right? Now, picture Odoo. CRM, accounting, inventory, manufacturing, marketing, HR, and more. Odoo brings all the tools your business needs into one simple platform, and all seamlessly connected. Everything works together, giving you the peace of mind that your business is running smoothly from every angle. Odoo's open source applications are user-friendly and designed to scale with your business, saving you time and money. Say goodbye to juggling multiple platforms and hello to efficient integrated management. Stop wasting resources on complicated systems and make the switch to Odoo today. Visit odoo.com, ODOO.com, and discover how Odoo can simplify and streamline your business operations. Odoo, modern management made simple.
As a small business owner, have you ever felt overwhelmed by the pressure of choosing the right hire or leading a team? Or have you ever found yourself tolerating a bad hire because you fear trying and failing again as you repeat the hiring process? If so, you're not alone, and you are in the right place. Welcome to the Growing Your Team podcast. The Growing Your Team podcast teaches business owners like you to expand your unique business by teaching you to master the hiring and team management process. Hiring and managing a team does not have to be a challenge. You just have to learn to do it right. And the Growing Your Team podcast teaches you how to become a confident leader who hires right every single time. Now, let's jump into the show where each episode you will learn tips on how to identify what type of help you need on your team, how to source amazing candidates, how to conduct interviews that lead you to your ideal team member, how to onboard successfully, and how to lead every person in your business so you have a team of rock stars who you are happy to pay every single paycheck. So let's jump in and teach you how to hire like a pro. Hello, Jamie Van Kuyk here, and welcome back to the Growing Your Team podcast. Today, I have on guest Melissa Leone. Melissa is a 20-year finance professional who is passionate about teaching financial literacy. She co-owns 2 Cents Consulting, a bookkeeping and fractional CFO firm dedicated to helping small business owners make sense of their financial statements. In this conversation, Melissa and I are talking about so much more than finances, about business. But a lot of it ties back to finances because that is super, super important. Some of the things that we dive into in this episode is talking about, do you have the ability to sustain an employee or really add that employee, even if your numbers are showing that you can? So for example, do you have enough room for them to sit, ability to add them to your systems, and so forth? It's more than just saying, can I afford an employee? We are talking about as your team grows and you add more clients, as a business owner, you might make less off of each client personally. So what's going into your personal bank account? But that's okay because it's the quantity of new clients that you'll be able to serve that are going to support your business that you don't have to be involved in, but you're still getting paid. And one of the other things that we're talking about today is delegating and why it is important to delegate and to delegate the right items to the right people. Because a lot of times as business owners, we think about delegating the doing, and we forget that there's also thinking and planning that goes along with doing work within a business. So you might not always feel completely out of a task just because you delegate the doing, but delegating the doing is going to help free you up so you can eventually delegate the thinking. So let's jump into this conversation with Melissa. Hi, Melissa. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'm excited. All right, before we jump into today's conversation, can you take a moment and introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Melissa Leone. I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona. I own a company called 2 Cents Consulting. We're fractional CFOs for small business owners. I also am an author. I wrote a book called Efficiency Bitch: How Ambitious Women Can Have It All Without Doing It All. I host a podcast called Efficiency Bitch. I'm a mom of 3 kids. I do a lot of things. My background is all in corporate finance. I spent 28 years in the corporate world, and as of 2 weeks ago, have left the corporate world entirely for full-time self-employment. I've been like side hustling, I guess, for the last 4 years, growing my business, and finally grew it to the size where it could afford me full-time. So new adventure for me for sure, but been exciting so far.
Yes. Well, congratulations on growing your business to that point. I know that it's always one of those, it's a huge, huge milestone, but I feel like when we're in it and doing that, it's always like, ooh, is it time? Is it time? Is it time?
Yeah.
So how do you know it was time?
You know, it's a good question, and I get it a lot. It was a couple things. First was money. I mean, I had a full-time corporate gig, so golden handcuffs were on for sure. I needed to be able to sustain my 3 kids and my way of life. So money is definitely a huge part of it. And being a finance professional, you better believe I've been running spreadsheets for quite some time on that one. But the other thing was kind of some of the things that were happening in the corporate world. Some of the leadership was not what I needed it to be to feel fulfilled, and like I was continuing to grow. There's a lot of return to office policies happening in the corporate world right now. That was also impetus for me to take hikes. So, you know, the timing was just right on a lot of things. And if I had flashed back a year ago, the money might not have been right, even if the policy had been what they were. Or, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it just all hits at the right time, and that's where I was. So I did it. I still can't believe I did it, but I did it.
You did it. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. Obviously that's like one of the things we're going to be talking today about, kind of like money and all that stuff. And I feel like it's one of those things that really holds us back a lot of times to making the decisions that we need to make as business owners, because we really operate a lot on that money scarcity mindset, because we see the flow in and out. We see what it takes to land that next client. We see immediately when maybe there's a shift in the market that makes it so maybe this month's going to be a little bit tougher, and what's going to happen. And then even after we make the decision that like, okay, I'm 100% depending on this income, I'm giving it up. We know what that decision was like. And we're like, how can I then have someone else be 100% on this income? And we go through, I think, a lot of these kind of like what ifs, instead of really understanding maybe our numbers and everything that's right in front of us.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, I have about 65 small business owners that I work with today, and every single one of them has those types of fears and concerns. I mean, as a fractional CFO, part of what I'm there for is to analyze the data and then talk through it, because you can't just look at a report and say, yeah, I can hire 2 people next month, because it's not that simple, right? They're not going to be productive the moment that you hire them. So, particularly if you're like in a service-based business, they can't just immediately start doing everything you need them to do and bring in the revenue to hold that weight, so to speak. So just a lot of different components that come with it, and weighing all of those pieces, having right management structures in place so that when you do have them, they want to stay. Hiring in people is so expensive, and like just like customer acquisition is so expensive, like that churn of people on either side, you're way better off to be able to retain everybody than burn them out and let them go.
Right, right. So as you're working with your clients and helping them really feel more comfortable with the aspect of being able to hire, what are some of the things that you help them look through or identify?
Yeah, it just depends on the type of business, right? So if you're a restaurant and you know that you're having too long of wait times, do you have enough tables in the restaurant to be able to hire more staff? Because sometimes you just end up out of space. And so some of those pieces come into play. The next component is everybody being used efficiently. I mean, I told you I wrote a book called Efficiency Bitch. I'm all about efficiency. And in case you're wondering, bitch is an acronym, so it's not an attitude. There's a whole lot to that.
What does it stand for? Or we'll get
uh,
back to that. Keep going and then we'll come back to that.
Okay. But if you're a service-based business, right? And the more people you have working for you, the more money you're bringing in, then you really have to start to look at how much can that person take? There's overhead, of course, that comes into place. So let me give me some basic examples. If you're a service-based business, you may charge $100 an hour for a client to come in the door, but you're not going to pay your employee $100 an hour, because you're going to have to pay their taxes. You're going to have to pay for insurance. You're going to have to pay for overhead. You're going to have to pay for a fractional CFO and a fractional CHRO. And like you have all this other stuff. So then you have to do the math to figure out, is this person going to be able to bring their weight to match my expenses and a little bit of profit? So I always see it. I just hired my 4th employee myself. I'm not looking to make 100% revenue back on those 2 people. I'm looking to be able to serve more people with small margins on those people that I brought in, right? It's not going to be 100% like it is when you're yourself doing the work. So many angles, so many components to it. And a lot of it is specific to the individual business, but a lot of it's just business. So there's a couple
Right.
different lenses.
Yeah. Okay. One of the things I really want to jump in before we get to anything else there is, like you mentioned, you just hired, was it your 4th employee?
Yeah.
So you had employees, I'm assuming then, before you left your corporate job.
I did. Yeah, I did.
So how did that feel? Like going in, hiring someone else before you can afford to really fully hire yourself? Because I know that's something that holds people back, but at the same
Yep.
time, that's sometimes what you need in order to be able to get your business to the spot where it can afford to hire you full time.
Yeah, it is a math equation for sure. And I did so many spreadsheets to figure this all out to help myself walk through it. But employee number 1 was myself and my business partner. So we're 50-50 owners of this business. And we started taking on clients during the pandemic to try to help get through some of the PPP stuff and EDIL that small business owners were going through. And we started taking on clients, and we realized that we were starting to get to our maximum capacity for some of the transactional work. And we thought, well, we can keep taking on high level work, CFO work, but maybe not all the bookkeeping. So we hired a bookkeeper who happens to be my husband. He left his corporate job of 20 years, right, to come work for us. And so he started doing a lot of the bookkeeping, not our bookkeeping, but bookkeeping for our clients.
Right.
And so he was starting to do that, and he was doing that about 20 hours a week. So we had part-time work available for him really quickly. But what it did is it allowed Leanne and I to both take on more CFO stuff. So we're talking forecasting and budgeting and cash flow planning. And all of those clients that needed all of that needed more bookkeeping. So we just kept you end up with this equation where you give a little work away, but you have this other room to fill, and you end up with more. We hired our 4th employee, who I'm not married to, in October of last year, and she's been able to take on more CFO level work for us. So she can both do projects and bookkeeping and CFO work, and the four of us are able to expand. Now, that gave me a lot of room to go out and continue to network and to continue to meet people and continue to show up on podcasts and do speaking events, because it's a sales funnel for us. Like, you don't hire a CFO from Instagram, you hire a CFO from somebody that you meet. So we then leveraged my time to go meet people and continue to build and build and build. I'm now in a position right now where we're going to hang on for about 4 months before we start to network again. We're going to let some of that funnel flow through and figure out, do we need to hire another employee? Because, man, there is such a need for CFOs in the small business space. Like, there needs to be more of us. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to start a fractional CFO business, do it and call me and I'll tell you how, because there are more people out there than there are people doing what we do. Like,
Well, and it's so important. Like, your numbers really control everything. And there's so many decisions, like, as we kind of talked about, that you don't make when you should make because you don't understand your numbers, and decisions that you're making when you shouldn't be making them because you don't understand your numbers, and like all these things that not knowing your numbers can really hold you back from growth and also make you crumble
faster than you recognize is happening is spot on. I mean, look, in a corporate world, the CFO is number 2, not the COO. It's CEO, CFO. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is that financial person needs to understand everything that's going on and be able to predict the future of, are we going to run out of cash? Are we going to run out of capital? Are we going to run out of all the things that we need to have? And what's our profit going to look like? Profit and cash are two very, very different things. Business owners often look at their checking account and think, I'm fine. But you're not fine, because you can't put payroll or taxes or rent on a credit card. So having somebody to look through that. Now, most small business owners don't need a full-time CFO. They need somebody 1 hour a month, right? Like, that's what the offering is. The offering is, let me give you my brain and my expertise for an hour a month, or 10 hours a month if that's what you need. And I tell all my clients, I either want you to learn so much from me that you don't need me anymore, or grow so much that you need more of me. Like, those are the two things. I'm not here to do your bookkeeping, send your report that you never read, and move on. That's not for me.
Right. Well, I think it's like also one of those things is, like, you brought up something really critical for hiring for small businesses is so many people think, all right, I need to hire someone. It needs to be someone full-time. How do I afford someone full-time? How do I hire this high-level expertise? And I always try to make people realize that you don't need to jump in to full-time. You don't need a 40-hour-a-week CFO in your organization unless there's work for a 40-hour-a-week CFO in your organization. And chances are, if there's enough work for that, you can more than afford it. And you're not in this spot where you're trying to hire your first financial person for your business. Like, you've grown to that point. We don't start off with hiring with it being a full-time team member a lot of the times. There are some businesses that can jump right into that or need to, depending on like what type of service and things you offer. But for most businesses, we're starting much smaller. And that's the help that we need. And it's the help that makes financial sense. And it's the help that's going to help us be, efficient and all those things. And we're not going to be overdoing it. Because going back, you brought up that example about hiring more servers, but do you have tables? And I feel like that's something that's really important. Like, it brought back memories of a time where I was working in a restaurant in college and we had all the servers that we needed, the tables, but we had no hostess. We had no one bussing. And all of a sudden there would be no place to see people because they didn't hire the people in the right positions, but they're like, we got enough servers. And we're like, but we're sitting around like frantic and no one's helping us. And we're trying to seat tables. We're trying to bus our tables. We're trying to serve the food. We're trying to get the drinks. We're trying to keep people happy. And it was a chaotic mess. So it's like making sure you're like, that you're not just hiring for one thing, that you have everything lined up so everything can be successful and the business can run efficiently.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right people in the right seats, right? And that's what it's all going to be about. I had this crazy idea of this fractional CFO in 2019. I had no idea what I was doing. I was still very much under the corporate lifestyle. It was just something I had a passion for and I wanted to go do. Now, if you go on LinkedIn and you type in fractional CFO, you're going to find a bunch. Like, there's a There's a fractional CFO group on LinkedIn that I'm in, and there's 800 of us. So 800 is not a lot considering how many small business owners there are, but there are a lot of people. So you can find someone in your area. The cool thing about money, particularly this day and age, is we can do it all on the internet. So I can get in QuickBooks Online. You can sit in Maryland, which I have clients in Maryland and Florida and Hawaii and all of the places. And you don't have to even be in the same room, which is really great. I mean, this gig economy that came out of COVID has created fractional chief marketing officers and chief financial officers and chief HR officers, right? And these are people who, at least in my experience, are highly qualified, heavy experience, right? I've been doing this almost 30 years, and my experience level puts me at a position where am I going to take a job for $30 an hour? Absolutely not. But you can afford me for 1 hour, maybe not for 50, but maybe for one. That's good. And that's what's so cool about it is it gives people the amount, the slice that they need. Like if you're listening to this and you're a small business owner and you don't have somebody looking over your marketing, I highly recommend looking over chief marketing officer, like fractional style, CFO, fractional CFO, and then really dig into the operations component. Because if you can own the operations all the way through and let somebody else manage your finance and your marketing, you're going to be in a really strong position to grow.
Yes, exactly. And I think that is so important. And I think it brings back kind of to the mentality of we think sometimes as the business owner, when we're small, we need to be in charge of all the decisions and that strategic thought process and all those things. And then we're trying to control buckets that we really don't have the expertise to do. And as you talked about there, like fractional CFO, the fractional CMO, and all those other things, fractional HR people, and all those things, like they allow you to get that strategic level expertise that you need without having to break the bank to hire somebody.
Yeah,
And it's so
absolutely.
important because sometimes I've noticed this a lot of times in business, they're really good at hiring out the tactical execution type work. So for social media and marketing, the person that's going to post the content. For financial, they might hire that bookkeeper that's just categorizing their transactions. You know, for so many other things, I hire the person that can do this tactical day-to-day stuff, but then they're still holding on to all that thought process stuff. Is your marketing
Yes.
actually doing what it should be doing, or are you just putting content out there? Are your numbers doing what they're supposed to be doing? Are you optimizing things in your business to really be successful there? Are you properly planning? Do you know if you have seasonality in your business? Do you know all these things that your numbers tell you? Or do you just know that at the end of the day, your transactions are all categorized and might make that a little bit easier come tax time? You know, so
Yep.
there's all those things where it's like, stop holding on to those high level tasks that is not your area of expertise.
Yeah.
And one of the things I also want to add for that is sometimes just because it's your area of expertise doesn't mean you should be doing it within your own business. So I know so many business owners in the marketing industry where they hire someone else for their marketing and that high level marketing, because while they're good at doing it for their clients, for their own business, it's always like, I'll get to that later. I'll get to it later. So they need that person to come in and say, this isn't a later thing. This is a now thing. Just like you do it for your own clients, you need to do it for yourself. So sometimes
Yeah.
if it is your expertise, if you're not doing it for your own business, hire the help to do it for your business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the cool part about things like Fiverr and a lot of these like virtual assistants that are in Costa Rica or the Philippines, like I'm here for it all day. I think it's awesome. I spent a long time in the business process outsourcing space in my corporate career, so I am a firm believer in outsourcing. However, to your point, the critical thinking that comes along with some of that, you don't lose the weight of those decisions are still squarely on your shoulders because that person is just going to post the reel. They're just going to post the job description. They're just going to balance the bank account. They're not going to tell you what it means. And they're certainly not going to come up with the idea before. So, like, there's a book called Fair Play. Eve Rodsky, I think is her name, but it has to do with like marital stuff, like women and men having equal share in the household. She has a concept that applies here, and it's about coming up with the idea, right? If you use a real life human example, we need to make dinner this week. Okay, so you come up with the idea, we need to make dinner this week. We're going to have tacos. Now somebody has to go to the grocery store and buy the stuff for the tacos, and then somebody has to actually execute it and make it. if you're just delegating the execution portion, the making of the tacos, you didn't really get rid of a lot of the work because now you still have to think about it, plan it, and go get it, right? And it's the same concept here. So if you've delegated your bookkeeping, but you haven't delegated the critical thinking of cash flow and forecasting and strategy, or you've delegated the job posting to Indeed, but you haven't really done the work on who needs to be in that seat for HR. Same thing with marketing. You've delegated the posting of a social media reel, but you haven't gone back to analyze it and decide that if it's real or not. You're still holding a huge portion of the burden, and that's why it's not helping.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not relieving the burden.
it's that mental load. And it's one
Mhm.
of those things like when we're talking about hiring and we talk about the cost of a bad hire, a lot of people are like, they look at just that paycheck. And I'm like,
Mhm.
no, it's so much more than just the paycheck you gave someone who didn't work out. And part of what I say in there, it's the mental load that you carry when
Mhm.
you're having to work with a team member and provide them feedback all the time. When you're thinking about that team member, when you're home and they're on your mind and you're like, oh my gosh, I have to go and review their work. Is it going to be good this time? Did they screw up again? Like all those things. It's that mental load that sometimes is even more draining than the actual doing
Mhm.
of the tasks. Cause I even know for myself, there are some things that get done once a month in my business that are some of the tactical stuff. And I keep them, I keep those ones for myself because I enjoy sometimes staying busy while I'm watching TV. And I'm like, I can watch this like romantic comedy and get this stuff done. And I really don't feel like I'm working and my hands are busy while I'm like watching something. So eventually I'll delegate that. But I'm like, it's more important to delegate other stuff right now. But I can go and do that after a really hard day and I'm sitting there and watching TV and I can do it well and I can do it right. But at the
Mhm.
same time, at those things, I can't go at the end of a really hard day and think about like or not the tactical, the strategic things or some things like that where I'm just like, well, I was planning on doing that, but now this is going to wait for another day because I'm just so mentally tired. I
Yeah.
just can't do this. So sometimes we start to identify ourselves like, what are those things that we know we need to be in that top mind frame in order to do? And those are the things that really take that strategic thought process.
Mhm.
And for a lot of it, like we do that for our clients. There's a lot of times when we talk about the services we offer, we know where they really kind of fail down or they can't do the strategic things or things like that. So we might have started with one package and then we're like, oh, we're going to add this on, or we're going to add this on, or we're going to do this to create it more, I don't know, more inclusive for our clients and this types of services and everything that we're offering because we understand the pain points that we're going through, but then we ignore
Mhm.
all the pain points that we're going through as a business owner ourselves.
Yep. Yeah, spot on. I mean, you have to do all of it kind of at the same time. And I'll say it's an evolution process too. I mean, one thing most business owners that I work with think is, oh, well, I looked at that 2 years ago and here's what I did. But like, guess what? The ground is so different today than it was 2 years ago or 6 months ago for that matter. So if you as the business owner can spend your bandwidth looking at things from a evolution perspective rather than a strategy perspective, that's going to keep your business on the forefront. I mean, it's no secret that the world and technology are keeping us moving faster than we could ever possibly imagine. And I mean, just in the last couple of months, AI is going to completely change the way everything is done forever. Like it or not, it's here to stay. And it is as big of a change to the business world as getting desktop computers in our homes was in the 90s. I mean, it is that big of a shift. Um, in fact, I was at a conference a year ago, I guess this time, and I heard it referred to as the three big productivity changes in the United States was when the freeways were installed in the United States in the 50s and 60s, when we got desktop computers in the 90s, and AI right now. Like those are three massive shifts. You thought the smartphone was bringing it in hot. Like this AI thing is going to change everything. So you need to be able to put your brain power there. Is AI, do I need to use it? How do I need to use it? Maybe try to use it a little bit here and there, but you can let some of the other strategy stuff be done by other folks or keep the lights on in those places because it's it's going to get crazier. It's going to get
Right.
faster. It's going to get more demanding, not the other way.
Yeah. I think it's you bring up kind of like the AI and stuff. And one of the things I think is don't be against trying it because you never
Mhm.
know what's going to work. And there's some things where it's not going to work the way you want, but if it's an opportunity for you to provide feedback, that's really important. So I know like in AI, there's a lot of things where AI has been used in the hiring process to identify a candidate if they're qualified for an interview when the resume comes in. And I think there's been some changes now, but I know early on, companies that did kind of like blind tests and they look at, okay, what candidates did it tell me to interview and what candidates when I reviewed did it tell me to interview? It wasn't in alignment. And they said some of our top performers, AI would have knocked out of the process, but they provided feedback. They talked about really what they looked at and what they needed this for, and it helped improve it. So if you're resistant about AI because you're like, I don't trust it yet, sometimes we have to use it and provide feedback so it gets better. If you think about, like you mentioned, desktop computers, they're completely different in a lot of ways now than they were before because they saw how people used it and feedback and it got better. The highway system, they expanded as needed. They realized where bottlenecks were. They improve things or try to improve things and it gets better. So we got to provide that feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. And the source of AI that you're using is really important. Like my most recent corporate job was at IBM. So I'll tell you, I've had more AI training than I ever cared to have. And I'll tell you, like large language models are constantly learning. The idea there is that they're going to pick up natural language. ChatGPT is the open source model that everybody's using right now. It's just browsing the World Wide Web. Like it's just looking at the internet and pulling in information in the fastest way I've ever seen. It's so cool. But if you're a big company or you're a company that's handling private data, you can go buy your own AI bot you can train it yourself. So it's not going to look at the open internet. It's going to go look just at your data. It's really cool. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can do to really make it smarter. Recently, I was using ChatGPT to help polish my LinkedIn post, kind of announcing my corporate exit. And I wrote it and then I just said, hey, do you have any suggestions here? And it read it. And then it said, by the way, congratulations on this huge step. And I was like, what? It was cool. And it kind of like, I thought this thing just congratulated me. It's weird. It's funny that just kind of, it's smart and it knows how to pick up key things and it knows how to pick up tone. I mean, I suggest if you're not using Grammarly right now in the business world, get it yesterday because it will help modify your emails in a language that if you tell it you want it to be harsh, it will be harsh. And if you tell it you want it to be gentle, it will be gentle. If you're trying to convince or tell a story, it's phenomenal.
Yes, I use it all the time. I love it.
So cool.
Yeah. And I think like the use of AI and like ChatGPT, like you said, you use it to kind of polish up your posts. I've been in a lot of conversations lately of should a candidate or should I judge a candidate if they use AI to help write their resume? And I'm like, there's been resume writing services out there forever. So why are we going to punish someone for using one source of a resume writing support versus another? Same with like cover letters. That's why I tell people a lot of times we're not going to judge people too much on their cover letters in terms of is it grammatically correct or things like that. I was like, because people get their cover letters reviewed or they use AI or, all these things. But I think it is great. Like I was working on a project for a client and they wanted a brief summary of the candidate to present out to their team. And it's one of those things where I'm just like, oh my gosh, I've talked to this candidate so many times. I've been involved in so many conversations. I have so much information going on in my head. How do I boil this down to a paragraph summary that I feel like encompasses it all and everything? And I was able to put like just the notes, the electronic notes that I had. And I said, summarize this in a 4-sentence paragraph. And it did it. And I read that. I was just like, oh my gosh, that just took out like probably 45 minutes of work that I would have done to try to boil it down and edit it and all these things. And there were some minor things that I had to tweak, but it saved me so much time.
Yeah, it's cool. And I'll tell you, I've got a 13-year-old who's in 7th grade now. There's an AI lab at her school. I mean, they're teaching this in high school right now. It's not going to slow down at all. Like if somebody's using AI to help write their resume or their cover letter, I'd actually give them more props because they're using all the tools at their disposal and trying to be as polished as possible. So
I totally agree with that because I'm just like, if a candidate's going to use AI to write their cover letter and you want to get their true writing style, why can't they use AI when they're writing something for your company to make sure? It's like, why can't they use Grammarly? Why can't they use these tools that are available?
Yeah.
We all use spell check. It's not like we're going to say, I need you to go back to like you're writing an essay in English class for your final exam and you can't have a dictionary or a spell check or anything out there in front of you and you need to just write.
Yeah.
No, like we're not going to be like that in the
That's not the
business
way it
world.
is
So why do
anymore.
we want to be like that when we're interviewing candidates?
Totally.
Let us see what resources they will go out and use to be good at their job, especially when we want someone who's proactive.
Yeah, I agree. I remember my grandmother saying in the 90s when I was in high school, like, you should learn how to spell. Spell check's not everywhere. And I was like, yeah, it is. And guess what? It's everywhere. It's on my phone. It's on, like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's funny how things start to shift. So embrace it. It doesn't mean you have to go jump in the middle of it and live off of it. Also read it. Like you can tell when people put in prompts into AI and then they don't read it. It's pretty
Oh,
clear.
yep.
So
Yeah,
do that.
I have seen that on a resume
Yeah.
where they were definitely using some sort of AI or some sort of like something that prompt what should go under this type of job description on a resume. And they didn't like there was stuff it was like kind of fill in the blank type things
Yeah.
and they didn't fill in the blank.
Do you remember, did you watch Friends in the 90s when it was on? There was an
Yes.
episode where Joey was writing a recommendation letter, I think, for Chandler and Monica's adoption, and he learned how to use a thesaurus. And he used a thesaurus on every word, and it was absolutely hysterical. So you can like remember back to the late 90s when like a thesaurus and word processor was finally like a real thing. This is a whole different level.
Oh yeah, that is. Now that you mentioned that, yes, I do remember. I do
So funny.
remember that. That's hilarious. All right, so before we wrap up and everything, I don't think we've talked about kind of the bitch acronym and everything, what that
Oh,
stands for,
yeah.
right? So let's make sure we said we were going to circle back to it. So let's make sure we circle back to it before we wrap up.
Definitely. So, efficiency bitch, the like name itself was a mean thing I called my mom when I was in high school. I was mad at her. And then 4 years ago, I decided I was going to write a book. And the book's title was going to be Efficiency Bitch. And before I really knew all of the things I was going to say, I started the podcast. And the podcast, if you go back to like listen to the beginning, it's so different than how it's landed today. Through that process, I came up with kind of the 5 pillars of things that make me good at the things I'm good at and the things that I need to work on in order to kind of keep myself rounded and happy. So the first one is bank, B for bank. I'm a finance professional. It's what I've been doing since I was 16. My first job was a bank teller. So I've been doing money for a long time. The next for I is inbox. So think of that like task mastering. Have to be able to manage your to-do lists. A T for time. So time management, being able to decide where to spend your hours in the day. C is for connection. I almost named this chapter community and then it turned into connection because it's about a lot more than just community. It's about interpersonal relationships, how you speak to one another, how you show up for people, that kind of thing. And that's a space that's been challenging for me over the years. I think just as a type A accountant, I can forget to say hello to somebody in the morning. I go straight into business. It was some of the feedback I received in the corporate world was I was too business. So that connection portion is something that's a growth area for me that I spent a lot of time researching and coming up with ideas on. And then harmony is the final letter. And that's really about so much more than work-life balance. I've had many different phases in my life where I've spent a lot of time working. I mean, the last 4 years are a perfect example of that. Working a full-time job and building a business that's hitting 7 figures, like it's a shitload of work. There's so much time that goes into all of this. But now I'm in a phase where I'm going to pull back significantly and start to lean way more into my kids. They're 9, 11, and 13, and they need me now probably more than ever. And so being able to like ebb and flow with life in that way, with that harmony space, is what that last chapter is all about. It's also like health and wellness, right? I'm a fitness lover, so some of that type of area. But I'll tell you, writing the book was one of the most therapeutic things I've ever done in my life. And it's been quite a lot of fun. I do a lot of speaking events on Efficiency Bitch, and it's been, I mean, men can read it. It says how ambitious women can have it all, but it's totally appropriate for anybody to read. I'm working on another one right now for teenagers. Um, Having one of these crazy little monsters in my house right now. My goodness, I forgot how hard teenagers are. I was a bad one too, and I forgot. Teenagers are tough, man. And I'm just getting started. But yeah, so bank, inbox, time, connection, harmony.
Yeah, that's all great. And they're all such important things that you need to consider and you need to focus on. And
Yeah,
you can't really be successful in just one of them and be successful overall. Like you need that balance.
totally.
And I really like that it can apply to business, it can apply to personal life, and it can be that mixture of looking at it all together because we are holistic human beings. There's very few of us that can not work or not have somebody working in the family. So,
Yeah.
it is super important to have that proper balance between all those areas of life. And especially, I love that you included health in there. So,
If you don't have your health, you don't really have anything. So you got to take care of your body and mind. I mean,
Mhm.
that's the other piece, I guess, for me that was a growth space is I've always been into fitness. Like working out was never something you had to convince me to do, but meditating is like I am not the kind of person that sits still ever. So trying to get me
Guilty as
to
well.
like that's a hard area for me. It still is. Um I mean, I've been trying really hard to get 10,000 steps in a day. This is like my new goal, new me, right? I sit at a desk all day, every day. There are days I get 800 steps and I work from home. So I don't even get to go to the car and the parking lot. It's just bedroom, bathroom, office. That's like my life. I've been trying really hard to get the steps in. And even this morning, I was like, I don't have time for this. I have all these other things I got to do, blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking to myself about it. It's like, I can't shut that off, but I'm trying. All you can do is keep giving it a shot.
Right. Yes, yes, definitely. All right, Melissa, we have to start wrapping up. So tell everybody how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place. I'm really trying to keep my social media as limited as possible these days. I do exist on the other platforms, but no one wants to talk about accounting on Meta. So LinkedIn, Melissa Leone. You can also look up 2 Cents Consulting, and that's SENSE. That's the best place to find me.
Perfect. All right. And then my final question that I love to ask all my guests. We've all had leaders or managers that have stood out to us. Think of a leader or manager that has stood out to you and share one thing about them.
The the best leader that I've ever known was one who challenged me to the level that I didn't know I needed. He hired me 24 years ago at Four Seasons Hotels. Um, he was really hard on me, like challenged me to learn new things. If he knew the answer, he would still ask me the question to get me, and this is in accounting, right? We were working in accounting, to get me to articulate it. He forced me to speak in group meetings, which I did not want to do. He quite honestly scared me a little bit, but it wasn't him I was scared of. It was pulling me out that was so scary. And now I look back and I'm like, this guy changed the trajectory of my career, right? He forced me to do public speaking, which now I do all the time. He forced me to dig a little deeper into accounting issues and to figure out why something didn't balance, which when you're an accountant, a lot of people don't go that way. The thing that made him stand out so much to me was how fair he was to everybody. So it wasn't just me he was pushing, it was every single person in that hotel that he pushed to the same level because he wanted all of us to succeed. It wasn't just his team or me, or I mean, he was hard on the spa manager, he was hard on the front desk manager, he was hard on the housekeeping manager because he wanted all of us equally to think, use our brains, and try to problem solve. And he's still to this day like one of my top people I call when I need to problem solve.
Sounds good. Oh, I love to hear all that stuff about managers really helping people get to that next level, helping people succeed, that understand that companies and organizations succeed when their employees succeed, when they feel valued and they feel encouraged to take that extra step. We're I think almost every business I talk to says, I want someone that's proactive. And it's like, okay, well, if you want them to constantly be pouring into your business in a proactive way, how are you pouring into your employees in a proactive way? And yes, it's going to look different. You're not going to be proactively doing their work for them, but how do you make them feel valued so they want to take that step, or they want to take that initiative and always be thinking one step ahead because they know you have their back?
That's it.
All right, Melissa, that brings us to the end. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Thanks for having me.
And that wraps up this episode of the Growing Your Team podcast. But before we go, are you ready to gain the confidence to hire like a pro, but need to find a way to do so that fits your limited time and doesn't stretch your budget beyond its capacity? Let's face it, hiring has a lot of complexities. And if you don't know what you're doing at each step, you increase your chances of hiring the wrong person and then having to spend both time and money to rehire. So it's something that you want to do well the first time. But if you're like many small businesses that are hiring their very first contractors and employees, you most likely don't have thousands of dollars to spend on high-level hiring consultant services or full-service recruiting. But you still need help. You still need guidance. You still need the support to hire well. That is exactly what the Micro Hiring Consulting Program is for. This is a consulting program designed to support you through the process of hiring and onboarding contractors and part-time and full-time employees in a manner that fits your schedule and your budget. It's a month-to-month consulting program that gives you access to one-on-one calls, office hours, live training, and unlimited email support, so you have expert eyes on every job post, interview question, onboarding plan, or anything that you create, so that way you know it will work for you and be successful in the process of finding your ideal candidate. To learn more about this consulting opportunity and how you can get hiring support that fits your time and your budget, head on over to growingyourteam.com/micro. Once again, go to growingyourteam.com/micro to learn more about this consulting program that's going to help guide you to successful hires every time.